Good evening, everybody. We're going to have a good time tonight? I can't hear you. Are we going to have a good time tonight? Are we going to make sure that Juan knows how much we love him? Are we going to build him a beautiful house? You better believe it, the sacrifice that he made. He's sitting over there with his fiancée, Alexis. Alexis, wave your hand over there. Congratulations. Juan, you're a hero. You're a hero. You made a tremendous sacrifice for our country. And we want to pay you back the little bit that we can. And tonight I want to talk about a few different things. One about the foundation. I want to talk about the partnership that we have with the Gary Sinise Foundation. I want to talk about the generosity of one individual, Ned Wallace from Wallace Air Cargo, who started all this in California, where we made this commitment to Juan because of Ned Wallace. But first, let me tell you about my brother, firefighter Stephen Gerard Siller, who gave his life on 9/11. Stephen was the youngest of 7 of us. When Stephen was born, my mother was 44 years old. My father was 49. He was our gift from God. He was our miracle. He became the very core of our family. He brought so much joy into our lives. When Stephen was 8.5, our dad passed away. And a year and a half later, our mom passed away. And at age 10, Stephen was orphaned. But he had 6 older brothers and sisters that loved him so much, and we made sure that we took care of him. And he moved out to Long Island with my brother. We lived on Staten Island, New York, just in case you don't know I'm not from New York. And he moved out to Rockville Center in Long Island, where my brother Russ and my sister-in-law Jackie saved his life. And all brothers and sisters played a large role in his upbringing. He moves back to Staten Island around 18 years old. Now, he went to a grammar school up till he was 10 before he moved out there after my parents died. And he was in a class in the 5th grade. And there was a young little girl in that class that lived around the block from us when we were growing up. And when after Stephen moves back to Staten Island, he gets reacquainted with the love of his life. He falls in love with the girl next door, Sarah Siller, Sarah Wilson at the time. He gets married. He has 5 beautiful children: Katie, Olivia, Genevieve, Jake, and Stephen. He gets on the fire department. He buys a house. He rips it apart because that's what firefighters do. He fixes it up because he has all his brothers, the brotherhood from the fire department, come over and help him. He's on top of the world. He is so happy. He has everything he's ever dreamed of. And then, after a night tour, September 11, 2001, Stephen was on his way home to play golf with myself and my 2 other brothers. And he heard on his scanner what had happened. And he turned his car around and he drove back to his firehouse to get his gear. And he calls his wife up, Sally, and told him, of course, that he's going to respond, because that's what firefighters do. And that's what our militaries do every single day. And he says, "Tell my brothers I'll catch up with them later." How profound. He gets his gear. He drives to the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, which is a tunnel that connects downtown Brooklyn with Manhattan. It's closed for security reasons. He straps 65 pounds of fire gear on his back, and he runs through the tunnel to the towers, where he lays down his life to save others. Stephen is my hero. He is our family's hero. And he represents the courage of so many people that day. 343 firefighters, 60 police officers, and 3,000 people we lost that day. But he so inspired his family that we started a foundation in his honor called the Stephen Siller Tunnel to Towers Foundation. And we do many things. But nothing more important that we're doing now, which is building for America's bravest and building homes all across America. There was a Easter Sunday, 2009, there's a young man from my hometown, Brendan Morocco. And Brendan got severely injured. He's the first quadruple amputee ever to survive. Because we didn't know we were going to build homes, our foundation. We started out doing many things. But we didn't know we were going to build homes because God is directing us. And we heard about Brendan. We went down and we visited him down at Walter Reed Hospital in Washington. And when we were down there, I said to Brendan, Brendan, it would be an honor and a privilege if you allow our foundation to build you a house. And he humbly accepted. And when we did that, we knew we had to raise money. Now, some of you might know, and some of you might know, all the things that Gary Sinise does for our troops all over the world. Gary Sinise, well, I knew that. I knew that. And I also knew that the commissioner of the fire department in New York City was friends with Gary. Because the commissioner is my friend. And I said, Commissioner, can you call up Gary and ask if his band can help us with the fundraiser to help build this house for Brendan Morocco? And of course, Gary being Gary, he says absolutely yes. And so here's a miracle, because there's so many miracles that happen to our foundation. And we've met so many great people. We're out to dinner planning the concert. And Gary turns to me and says to me, Frank, do you know there's 2 more quadruple amputees? I said, yes, Corporal Todd Nicely and Sergeant John Peck. He says, well, you're building a house for Brendan Morocco, Specialist Brendan Morocco. What are you going to do for them? I turned to him. I said, I guess we're building them a house. And our partnership wasn't formally done that night, but it was for all the practical purposes. And that's how the Gary Sinise Foundation and the Stephen Siller Tunnel to Towers Foundation are building for America's bravest all over America. Gary Sinise is our modern-day Bob Hope. That's right. You better believe it. What he does for everybody is unbelievable. So every year we have a run in New York called the Tunnel to Towers Run. As a matter of fact, we'll have 100 around the country this year. But we have it in New York because that's where Stephen made his run. The first year we had about 2,000 people, and this past year we had over 30,000 people that ran all over the United States, all around America, all around the world. So many of them ran with the firefighters' gear on their back, with the military bunker gear on their back, to emulate what Stephen did that day. And this year CBS showed it in many of their owned and operated stations, and they showed it out here in California. And here's another miracle. Ned Wallace from Wallace Air Cargo was watching that Sunday morning this past September and saw the Tunnel to Towers run. And he saw the segment about where we built a home for Specialist Brendan Morocco, the first quadruple amputee ever to survive. And he was moved by it. And he said, this is something I want to get involved with. So he called the foundation up the next day, and I spoke to him. And he said he wanted to do something very special for one of our men and women that are severely injured. And I said to him, Ned, beautiful, what exactly do you mean special? He says, I want to build one of these kids a house. He offered to build one of them a house. And he donated, you ready for this? The largest donation our foundations have ever gotten over 10 years. $450,000 for Juan Dominguez's house. And Juan, the miracle doesn't stop there. The miracle doesn't stop there because Ned said, do you have anybody in California? I said, no, Ned, but we could get somebody in California because God knows there's so many of them that are injured severely from all over this great country of ours. We're on our way back, and I'm going to end with this. We're on our way back from Missouri, the Lake of the Ozarks, because we started a house for Corporal Todd Nicely, another quadruple amputee. We did the groundbreaking. The person in charge of our military construction, a retired captain in the New York Fire Department, Mike Banker, was in a layover in Chicago. Who's getting pushed through the airport but Juan Dominguez? Ned makes the promise. A few days later, Juan Dominguez is getting pushed through. Our guy sees him, walks up to him and says, "Hey, do you know Todd Nicely?" He said, "Yeah, I know Todd Nicely." Juan said, "One of the worst days I was ever having, I saw Todd Nicely, quadruple amputee, on his prosthetics, hop into his car and drive away." He said, "I saw that and I knew I could do that." And believe me, Juan doesn't have many bad days, because if you meet Juan, this guy's attitude is unbelievable. I said, "Well," and Mike said to him, "Well, we're building him a house and this is what we do. Where are you going to be living?" He said, "I'm looking for a house in Temecula, California." So Mike Banker says, "You're going to get a call from a guy named Frank Siller tomorrow." And he did. And I said, "Juan, all you have to," I told him about the generosity of Ned Wallace. And I said, "Juan, all you have to do is say yes." And you know what he said? Yes. So it's unbelievable, all the miracles that happen. So at this point, I would like to bring a few people out here to present something to Ned Wallace. First of all, I would like my brother's wife, Sarah Siller, to come out here with my brother's two daughters, Olivia and Genevieve Siller. Come on out here, please. I'm going to bring two battalion chiefs that fought the battle of Ground Zero that day, and our two board members of our foundation that go all around spreading the message of what we're doing and doing good work all over the United States. Battalion Chief John LaBarber and Battalion Chief John Carroll. Come on up here, please. And ladies and gentlemen, for the generosity, let's give a big round of applause for Ned Wallace from Wallace Air Cargo. Come on out here, Ned. Come on, pick it up. Pick it up. Ned, come on over here. Now, we have given many things in appreciation because so many people are doing so much for so many. What you're all doing out here tonight for Juan and spreading the message and helping him build his house is all very important. And we've never given anything like this to anybody, but we've never had the outpouring like we did from Ned. So with our great pleasure, we'd like to present to you, can we pull this off, girls? A piece of steel from Ground Zero. This represents the sacrifice made that day and the sacrifice from our men and women who protect us every day in this great country of America. God bless America. And Ned, thank you so much for what you've done. God bless you.
Well, I have to admit, that's pretty cool. Frank, I just can't tell you how much I admire your foundation and the work you do. And believe me, it's a real pleasure to work with you. And Juan, I couldn't think of anybody more deserving, and given the sacrifices you've made. And the only thing I ask is you invite me over to your house to swim in your pool and have some fine Temecula wine.
Thank you. This is on behalf of the Gary Sinise Foundation and the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Thank you, Ned.